time for the Shop Report with
Barbershop Jay.
What up, sports fans? Welcome to the Shop Report. I'm Barbershop Jay. I'll be your host for the day. Here's what's happening. Now that the 2016 NBA regular season has finally come to a close, it is time for us to give our breakdown on to give a breakdown on what is our favorite part of any NBA season. Excuse me. The playoffs. But before we do any playoff analogizing, yes, that's my word, let us first ask a couple of questions that will no doubt be answered during what is sure to be a wild playoff run. And here are but a few. Can the Warriors repeat? Yeah, I believe so. Are the Spurs finally too old? Yeah, it's starting to look like it. Although there's something in me that says Spurs head coach Greg Popovich has something up his sleeve. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think so far in maybe 3 matchups or maybe even 4, the Warriors have bested the Spurs. I think the Spurs only won one. I think like 1-3 or 1-2 or something like that or another. So, and that's regular season, of course. We all know that the NBA postseason, any postseason in any sport, is a whole new set of rules, if you would, or it's a whole new ball game when it comes to whatever said sports postseason. So, yeah, even though the Warriors have bested the Spurs or got the best of the Spurs in the regular season, there's still something to be said. By the way, the Spurs do what they do come this playoff run should these two meet. And I gotta throw this out there. And the reason why I say that, it was 1980, in between 1987 and 1989. I'm not sure which year, but the Jordan era, the Cleveland Cavaliers in the regular season were 6-0 going into their first round matchup against the Bulls when Jordan hit the shot over Elo, and Elo fell to the floor like a dirty mop at the Richfield Coliseum. But yes, the Cavs were 6-0 in the regular season against the Bulls that year. So that's just to my point. You know, you can have the regular season is one season, the postseason is the postseason. So, yeah, I asked the question again. Are the Spurs finally too old? It looks like it, but again, you know, you never know what's going on with Popovich. But it's interesting to hear what he said when I believe ESPN Mark Stein interviewed him sometime back in February. That's Greg Popovich, that is, and what he had to say about these Warriors and what they've been able to do so far this season. By the way, congratulations to them on 73, unprecedented. But to continue on, is this LeBron's last rodeo? Now, let's face it, injuries are a part of the game. But depending on the sport, the injury or the injury factor, to me, carries more weight in certain sports than it does in others. As far as being dismissive when it comes to injuries. In basketball, you got to know, you know, unlike football, you know, you expect injuries because it's a collision sport. Again, every down is like combat. But in basketball, you know, once you start to get that little bit of wear and tear, you know, you can go a little bit longer than you could, you know, in football, you know, when it comes to injuries and the wear and tears and such. But Father Time is undefeated. So, you know, I look at guys like Brandon Roy, who used to play with the Blazers and who just had chronic knee problems or whatnot. You know, at the end of the day, man, once your body start breaking down, you know, it's nothing you can do about it. You know what I mean? From the cradle we come, into the grave we return, so to speak. And this being, I believe, LeBron's 13th season, you have to wonder, you know, have the injuries or have the wear and tear Are they starting to take effect, or have they piled up so much so that this because a lot of folks are retiring in these sports now too. Now you know what I mean. And again, now that we mentioned retirement, congratulations, Kobe Bryant on his 60 and what was such an epic classic way to go out for any player in any sport. Kudos to my man Kobe. And again, we speaking about injuries. That's kind of what sort of led to his retirement, along with the tenure and the duration, of course, and all the seasons. That whole injury thing, man, it can be something else. So, again, is this LeBron's last rodeo? And lastly, are the Thunder being overlooked as possible champs? Now, I got to tell you, they have a roster that is second to none. But as with all the playoff teams, whenever I'm watching a game, again, in any sport, I turn my mute button on because I'm a stickler for the eye test, what I see. And the style of play, this is what we base our assessments on when we do this playoff breakdown, this 2016 NBA playoff breakdown. It's your style of play, not your stats, not your stature. It's your style of play. So I got to say, the Thunder, their style of play is not conducive to a title, but it's something that could be adjusted mid-postseason. Because other than that, they have everything else that they need. So can they? Yes. Will they? I don't know. But I would not be surprised. Despite Golden State 73, what they did, and the Spurs' uncanny home record, win-loss record, all of that. Yes, they are legitimate contenders. But unbeknownst to most folk, so too are the Thunder, I believe. So, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. But what I do know, it's time for us to take up a moment of your precious time and clarify the 2016 NBA playoff picture, starting with, of course, the West. And none other than Golden State versus the Houston Rockets. On the Warriors side, they averaged an NBA best 114, if you want to be technical, 0.8 points per game. Just to put it in some kind of perspective for you, the Spurs are next at 103.6. And I got to say this. Greg Popovich is widely respected and well respected throughout the entire league and just basketball folk in general. And he said something that I thought was very, very poignant and almost concessionary, if you would, like he's conceding to some degree. Now, I still don't, as one of my colleagues put it, the Spurs are kind of sneaky. But for Pop to say what he said about the Golden State Warriors, I mean, it's just, what else can you say? And this is not verbatim. I'm reading this, but again, not verbatim, but just kind of paraphrasing, if you would. He said, I'm actually enjoying them very, very much. You try to solve them, but in a sense, they're unsolvable because it's a particular mix of talent that they have. It's not just that Steph and Clay can make shots or Draymond Green's versatility, but it's that everybody from top to bottom on that roster can shoot, pass, and catch, and they all get it. He said they're for real. They're talented, no doubt, but they're also very, very smart. So, are they the Spurs? No. But do they play the way or with the kind of style that the Spurs play with in order to win consistently and win in the manner in which if you had the money, you could call it bankable? Yeah, they do. And that's coming from Greg Popovich, which I found rather interesting. So, again, congratulations to the Warriors on 73. But I got to tell you, I'm not even saying that it's a foregone conclusion that they'll win the finals this year. You know, that's why they still play the games or whatnot. And there are a few teams out there who, on paper anyway, or at least, are somewhat formidable. But as of right now, they just, you know, it's like watching poetry in motion, man. You know, I wouldn't bet against them. I'll tell you that. And as far as the Houston Rockets, I mean, what else could be said about them? Turmoil, chaos, soap opera, divas. And James Harden been on Shaqtin' a Fool more times than the Warriors than won games this season. He's a one-way player. They don't play, the Houston Rockets don't, with any cohesiveness. If you think the Golden State Warriors and the Spurs play as a unit, then the Houston Rockets, with all their big names and contracts, are quite the contrary. So, of course, in this series, I'm picking the Warriors. I'll give the Rockets 1 because talent, you know, they do have, but that's all I'm giving them. The Warriors 4-1 in this series. Up next is the Spurs versus the Grizzlies. Now, here's something I found to be rather interesting. The San Antonio Spurs are an NBA best 92.9 per game, opponent points per game. So they number one in the league when it comes to total team defense. And that's not just a flowery stat, if you would, a meaningless stat or an empty stat or just something to mention because it's a stat. There's actually substance to the stat because when you watch them play, again, keep in mind you got to turn your mute button off, or turn your mute button on, rather, and just watch them play. You can see why they are tops in the league when it comes to defense. But the thing is, that defense and them being tops has, for whatever reason, been somewhat of an Achilles heel when they played the Warriors this season. And which, again, goes to just say how good the Warriors are. So we shall see in the end, should those two meet, which I think it'll happen, just whether or not if the Spurs defense can hold out throughout until they get there. But as far as going against the Grizzlies, I'm telling you now, there will be no repeat of the 2010-2011 season when the Grizzlies beat the Spurs in the first round. Not this go round. I think the Spurs are focused, and I mean the Grizzlies have lost or don't have, as folks would like to say last year, which was the case with the Cavs against the Warriors, who they didn't have. Okay, well, staying along those same lines, no Marc Gasol, no Mike Conley. These Grizzlies still grind it out, so to speak. They still make you work for everything, but I don't see them being a match for the Spurs. The Spurs' confidence and their focus will be a little bit too much for the Grizzlies. And then, too, Lance Stephenson's mentality outweighs his ability. The guy can play, but for whatever reason, you know, he has. I'm surprised he ain't been on Shaqtin' a Fool, and if he has, I ain't seen it. And if he because I hadn't seen it, he should have, and I think I need to go back and check to see if I should have synced it. Because if no other player out there is worthy of a Shaqtin' a Fool moment, it's Lance Stephenson. So I'm picking the Spurs over the Grizzlies. Not necessarily in a sweep. I think the Grizzlies might, you know, because they have that grinded out style, relentless, no matter who's in front of them, they might end up getting 2 out the deal. But that'll be about it. But I see the Spurs moving on. And the Thunder, what can we say about the Oklahoma City Thunder? Except for they go as Westbrook goes. Not Kevin Durant. Yes, you heard me say it, not Kevin Durant. Russell Westbrook has this tenacity that is uncanny. And then his ability, just think about this. This dude had 18, last time I checked, 18 triple-doubles, seemed like consecutively on this current NBA season, or this 2016 NBA season. Man, that's almost unheard of. So a guy who has the ability to do that on one hand, but at the same time was kind of sort of at the helm of a 14 consecutive games lost in this past season or this current season, you ask yourself, you know what I mean, which Westbrook is going to show up? One thing you can't say about him is that he lacks for effort. He gives you everything he has every time out, all the time, every time, and any time. But there are times when, in the game's critical moments, he seems to, and I don't even know if it's purposeful, so to speak, but kind of forget other folks are there. And I know that might seem crazy, you know, seeing how he, you know, has a lot of assists most times with these triple doubles or whatnot. But his assists seem to come, for the most part, when he's in trouble, so to speak. But I tell you what, if he, and I've said this before, if the light clicks for him to understand as a point guard tempo and being more so of a facilitator, I say watch out for the Thunder, because the Mavericks have no chance. Dirk, and we talk about age and old, is really there. You know, for a tall guy, as tall as he is, you know, he's moving kind of cloddy right now. And I just think that Westbrook brings so much and puts so much pressure on a defense that the Mavericks, who are traditional in their style of play, which is cool, they just don't have what it take to keep up with them guys, man. That's why I think that the Thunder, you know, if they don't sweep them, the Mavericks may get a game or two. No, I'm gonna say a game. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with a game. You know, they might get a game, but that's about it. Yeah, they won't get two, I don't think. But then again, you never know, because Carlisle has, you know, and Dirk and them have won a title, so you can't completely rule out that championship pedigree, if you would, especially in their case. But I just think that the Thunder have too much firepower. And lastly, but not least, the Clippers versus the Blazers. The question surrounding the Clippers are, how healthy is Blake Griffin? And can DeAndre Jordan not be a liability in the fourth quarter? Because far too often, for a guy who is so integral, if I'm saying that right, into what the Clippers do offensively and defensively, his free throw percentage, which is well below 50, and his foul troubles late in games too often have him sitting on the bench when he should be out there with Chris Paul and company. And the Clippers are good. Championship good? I'm not sure. Second round good? Yeah. You know, how many more performances does Chris Paul have like he did last year against the Spurs in the first round? Who knows? You know, you don't get younger with age. You get older. So, and again, like I said before, you know, Father Time is undefeated. But, and they don't have enough depth, I don't believe. You know, after you get past Jamal Crawford, who's their sixth man, of course, you know, what else are you left with? And they're somewhat predictable, too. The Clippers are. So they have more than enough, you know, just having Doc Rivers and Chris Paul, per se, is enough to beat the Blazers. Because the Blazers are too finesse, way too finesse, especially after losing LaMarcus Aldridge. And I'm not saying that they were really, you know, tougher when they had him, but after losing LaMarcus, it's really, you can say what, a crapshoot, if you would. After that, you know, with the Blazers, everything they do is ISO, it seems like, and they're far too perimeter oriented. So I give them a game, but that's about it. Yeah, that's about it. No matter how many times and how many ways I look at it up and down and all the way around, I give them about a game. And it's unfortunate because they have talent too. But, you know, and a part of that as well is they don't play well together either, I don't think. It just don't look like it to me. You know what I mean? They are regular season phenoms and playoff material, but not championship material. So those are my picks, my take, and we'll see how the West shake out. Now, moving on to the Eastern Conference. Up first, the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Detroit Pistons. Now, I know there's a lot of folk out there chomping at the bit to say or think that the Cavs can beat the Golden State Warriors. But again, I ask you, in assessing and looking at all these playoff matchups, you have to go into it with the mentality or approach it with the mentality of style of play. You have to look at it that way. Don't get caught up in none of the cosmetic. Style of play. Do the Cavs have a championship roster? Yes. But their style of play is not conducive to winning a title. It says something otherwise. Now, they'll beat the Pistons, but I got this funny feeling with that Van Gundy over there, that Stan man. The last time Stan was coaching a squad that went up against the Cavs, Orlando Magic with Dwight Howard, of course. They kind of took it personal then that they were being overlooked in that matchup against the Cavs, which got them into the finals. I don't count out a Stan Van Gundy team, a Stan Van Gundy-led team going up against the Cavs. And here's one of the reasons why. The Cavs shoot, on average, 33 points, or at least attempts, 33 3-point attempts a game they average. And on average, they're only making about 10 of them. So what does that tell me? They too, despite all the wins, again, it's about how you playing, have a tendency, or are very much so, perimeter oriented. Yeah. Perimeter oriented. Too perimeter oriented based off those numbers. If you're an analytics type person, you ain't even got to be an analytics. If you're a 1 + 1 = 2 kind of person, you'll see that that's insane. And again, if you watch them play, if they're not hitting threes, their half-court offense is very stagnant and stiff. Too much ISO, too much one-on-one. You can get away with that in the regular season and run yourself out to 50-something odd wins. And kudos to them for that. No disrespect. But in the playoffs, bad habits catch up to you more often than not. Now, do they have more talent than the Pistons? By far. They got more talent than just about any other team in the East, which is why I think, and it's kind of premature out here, that they'll end up being the East rep in the finals this year again. But at the same time, it's something to be said for playing an opponent who not only has confidence, but has no fear of who's in front of them. And if no other player on that on that Pistons roster who exemplifies that, it's Reggie Jackson. He could not wait to get somewhere so that he could be the man. And to go along with Andre Drummond, who, if at any time in his career he get better at the free throw line, he'll definitely be an all-star all the time. And don't let him add a mid-range jump shot. Oh, my gosh. Because right now I give DeMarcus Cousins the slight edge over him in terms of ability or what he can do, except for the fact that, D. Cuz he got head case issues too. But I digress. The Pistons are third in the NBA in total rebounds a game. If I'm not mistaken, I think they average almost like 12, 30. We're talking offensive. Well, in total, it's probably like 26, 27 rebounds per game, somewhere in that area or that area code. But the point is, if it's nothing else about the postseason, regardless of the calendar year, those who play inside out win far more than those who don't, or far more than those who play outside in. And with their rebounding advantages, that means they playing on the inside and they keeping you on the outside. That don't bode well for nobody. I'm not saying that the Pistons are going to win. I'm not saying that. Don't let me get y'all out there get the twisting it and thinking that. I don't want y'all thinking that. What I'm saying is they're not going to be an easy out because they believe. You know how you get the young folk that don't know no better, that think they're invincible? Yeah, that's what the Pistons is bringing. Keep your eye on this series, though. I think it's going to be rather interesting. It's not a foregone conclusion like most folk out there think. Up next is the Raptors versus the Pacers. Like the Thunder, the Raptors go as Kyle Lowry goes. Yes, DeMar DeRozan is a household name, and they have a few other key pieces, if you would, or a few other pieces that personify complementary. But Kyle Lowry is the straw that stirs this drink. But he has to be better with the ball. Has to be. His assist to turnover ratio is not good. I think it's like almost 2.5. So for every 1.5 assists, he averaging, almost 2. I'm sorry, if almost every 2 assists, he averaging 1, a little over 1, when it comes to turnovers. That's too close, man. You want 3 to 1 or 4 to 1. You know what I mean? Not 1.5 or 2 to 1. And then on the Pacers side of things, they shoot 76% from the free throw line as a team. That's not getting you're not getting to the free throw line enough. You know what I mean? And at times, and I'm glad Paul George is back on the scene, after that debilitating injury he had. But at times you watch them, man, it seemed like Roy Hibbert's still out there playing. It's like they play in the mud at times too. They have enough to constantly be in playoff talk, not just this year, but a couple more years down the line. But the buck stops there after that. I don't see them as being, anything more than, first round fodder, if you would. I think the Raptors, and I won't say that the Raptors are going to win this handily, but, they might have to put in a little bit of work, but not the kind of work you would expect or you should expect when it comes to the Pacers and a Paul George. So, again, Lowry got to be better with the ball. And they, too, they play too much face up. The game is too perimeter oriented and face up, too. They don't go inside enough. But, you're going to find out real early how far you going, how far you ain't going if you don't go inside. That's the recipe for everybody in this playoffs. You got to go inside out. You go inside, it opens up the outside like the Red Sea. Up next is the Heat versus the Hornets. The Hornets, I'll get to the Heat in a minute. The Hornets are an enigma. They're capable. They have an inside and an outside game with Al Jefferson on the inside and, of course, Kemba Walker on the outside. But I can't quite put my finger on the Hornets and how this may shake out. This may be a closer series than one might imagine or one could think, but I don't really see where the Hornets could win this series. Because their turnovers are atrocious. They number one, man, in the league, or were number one in the league. And see, that's a stat that translates or that transfers to the postseason. Turnovers. They average 12 a game. That's average. So they don't take care of the ball because their offense is one of what I would like to call impromptu. It's too freestyle. As is the case with most of these teams in the playoffs, which is why folks are saying that today's league, is sort of kind of diluted, if you would, or as I like to call it, the Today BA. Because most of these offenses, man, they don't make sense. Bad shot selection, along with, the timing of said shots. They just, guys come down and jack up. I watched the Houston Rockets. I can't remember who they were playing earlier this season. And James Harden, they were out on a fast break. And this made me think of this. And I watched Trevor Ariza. I think it was Capella and Trevor Ariza, who were fanning out left and right opposite James Harden as they, were going out on a break. Ariza was to Harden's right, had a clear path to the basket. Bounce pass, waist pass, he got a score. He breaks towards the basket and pops out with nobody in his way at the rim for a three-point shot. I will never understand that. But it's plays like that make why folks say that the NBA is diluted. Why is it on every possession you have to make, or a guy feel like he just got to make the spectacular play? Why not just make the right play? Things will go a whole lot better for you. On the flip side, the Miami Heat are capable, but there are times, more often than not, where they don't score enough. I believe they 23rd in the league in overall team points per game. How that's not the case, how that's the case, rather, is kind of beyond me, because I look at some of the cats that they got down there, the Dragic, of course, D. Wade. He's not what he used to be, but, he's still, a little bit better than serviceable. No offense or no disrespect, D. And then you got Hassan Whiteside. They got, and Luol Deng, you know what I mean? And their offense is methodical. But as methodical as it is, which you can win with methodical, it's almost like in football. You don't have to have a John Elway or a Joe Montana to win a Super Bowl. You can have a Trent Dilfer, as long as everything else, as long as the rest of the structure is in place, so to speak. You know what I mean? And they have a structure, offensively and defensively. It's just how they don't score enough out of their style of play is kind of mind-boggling to me. That 23rd. So, again, and the playoffs is a whole different animal. So, teams get hot, guys get hot, and they do have that championship experience. That I can tell you. So, that may weigh how much, I don't know, but that may weigh in how quick they make work of the Hornets, or, it could be their downfall. You know what I mean? They have, again, what it takes to be a championship team, but as is the case with most of these cats and most of these teams, who gonna show up, right? Who gonna show up? And finally, Hawks versus the Celtics. Now, the Celtics got the same problem that the Cleveland Cavaliers got when it comes to shooting the three ball. And two, like the Portland Trail Blazers, they kind of finesse to me. Although I'll give all due respect to Brad Stevens and what he's been able to do with this modern era type player and type of team. He's been able to relate to them on a level where they are now back to respectability. Or they brought back respectability in Boston to some degree, if you ask me. But they're even worse than the Cavs in terms of a three-point attempts and makes. They average about 26 a game and only make about 8. So their entree, is the three ball. And the side dishes, is them little joints they give you, when when you go get some takeout, they give you the coleslaw and the little styrofoam little thing. Yeah, whereas, it's not enough of the other stuff that they do. And that comeback against the Heat the other night, man, that was just shame on the Heat. Really, it was. Shame on the Heat. But nonetheless, it was a comeback. So Boston, they got they like a mosquito. You know, they got enough to make you itch now. Ain't no question about that. They do have enough to make you itch. But I don't know. Actually, I would pick them over the Hawks in this series. Because the Hawks, to me, as I really start to look at it, you know, they don't get to the free throw line enough. Now, they shoot 78% from the line, which is okay. You know, 80% and better is better in my eyes. But, you know, Al Horford is getting up there in age. Paul Millsap, you know, they're still good, but they don't have enough depth by far. You know, and Kyle Korver, you know, he's a one-trick pony. You know, you get up in his shirt pocket, you know, or get out the bed with him in the morning, you know, he basically done. He's literally what you call a three-point shooter. Whereas a guy like Steph Curry is a shooter who can shoot the three, if that makes any sense to you all out there. He's not one-dimensional. He worked on making his jump shot better and then increased his range, whereas Kyle Korver started out from 80 feet and just kept shooting him and shooting him and shooting him and shooting. And we all know when you got those kind of guys, what I like to call a specialist, they'll shoot you in a game or they can shoot you out a game. Yeah, shoot you in a game or shoot you out the game. So, for a recap, I'm picking the Cavs over the Pistons. I'm not going to tell y'all again what and how many games and such. Just let them play out. I'm taking the Raptors over the Pacers. This is in the East, of course. I'm taking the Heat over the Hornets. And I'm taking the Celtics over the Hawks. Now, when we get to the second round, we'll give you a breakdown as well on the second round. But, of course, this is the first round matchup, so y'all going to have to roll with this for now. You know what I mean? This should be enough until lunchtime. Then you're going to get your snack from the snack bar. Going back to the West, I'm taking the Warriors over anybody. I'm taking the Spurs over the Grizzlies. I'm taking the Thunder over anybody. No, the Mavericks, of course. And I'm taking the Clippers over the Blazers. So, let the playoffs begin. And I say, I got a feeling this postseason is going to be quite interesting. You don't think so? Let me know. Well, y'all, it's been fun, but I got to run. I'm Barbershop Jay, and I appreciate y'all for listening to The Shop Report. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter at The Shop Report, or y'all can shoot us an email, theshopreport365@gmail.com. And remember, the next time you want to know what's really going on, come to the shop. Holla.